Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy, longtime comic book industry veteran and much longer comic book geek. And to this day, I am a comic book geek. Finally here, the third ROM Omnibus, or Romnibus as many of us fanboys call it. Cover is taken from an issue of ROM that was inked by P. Craig Russell, the legendary artist. This cover is penciled by Steve Ditko, and I really don't think he put Spider-Man on the cover. I think that was like a little wink that P. Craig Russell added to it. And I don't know how Ditko felt about it, because I think he was just a very private guy. And, he was always looking forward. Kind of like Kirby, he didn't look much behind him. He kept moving along, creating stuff. And, in the 80s, Ditko started to do more and more self-publishing as some of the Marvel and other books kind of waned. They were going for the new hot styles, and he was just old school, which is a shame. To me, old school means timeless. And so anyway, on this, I don't get maudlin or nothing. I love this. I'm going to have to look inside to see if this panel exists. It looks kind of like a Ditko hand, but what's funny is it's got segmented fingers, individual fingers implied. And Rob's always had like oven mitts for hands. He's had like one big hand and one thumb. So this omnibus is great. Just came in the mail, and reprints all these issues. I'm going to take this off because you just don't know. You just don't know. I don't want to rip it or kink it up or mess it. Here we go. On the inside, it's the same, except this one has a more standard side. And the back is a splash that it was in the last issue that finished off the Dire Wraiths. There was actually 10 issues after the Dire Wraiths were gone that ROM continued. And Bill Mantlo was still at the helm, writing all 75 issues and 4 annuals. And boy, I love that. I love that image. Except, what was it? The one, that's cool too. But there was another one I saw. You can see a lot of celebrity anchors on this. I never saw Mel Candido before or after, but I'm sure he's done plenty of other work. But you had Bob Layton, Tom Palmer, Butch Guice, Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey, Brad Breeding, P.K. Russell, Steve Lee Aloha, Kim DeMolder, Al Milgram, Joe Sinnott, John Byrne, and Gary Talek, all ink. Most of them are Ditko issues, and it's really interesting stuff. I think it's pretty wild. Oh, this is what bothers me. Like, it's cool to take a small image or a panel and blow it up big, but why that one? That looks really awful. It looks like I don't know, there were so many other images. It looks crude, but not crude in a cool way. Chris Ryall, who was the publisher of IDW, he had relationships with certain licensees, and so he's more than familiar with ROM. They published their own ROM books for a while that had nothing to do with the Marvel Universe ones, as well as Micronauts, but they didn't last very long. ROM 51, well, we start off with issue 50. The prior issue was so frustrating because both that issue and Micronauts 50, Bill Mantlo decided to kill off all the supporting characters, and it sort of took a little bit of the immediate, how can I put it? I mean, the stakes are so high, but the personal stakes are not as high, since there's no, you don't have Brandy's former, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, she had a fiance and parents and everything. They all got killed. So Brandy, in a previous issue, was merged with the armor owned by the dead Space Knight called Starshine, and she's just all about vengeance because her whole family's been wiped out, and most of Clareton, West Virginia, where the book was based, was wiped out. But I love the redesign. The original design of Starshine was kind of wonky. She sort of had this ponytail at the top, and she's really frustrated because she can't even cry, after everyone I've ever loved dead, destroyed, and I can't even cry. So what happens is there's a big funeral for those who have died in the Clairton massacre, and a news reporter actually picks it up. First he thinks there's a lot of bullshit going on, but it turns out they go to the Clairton cemetery, and Rom and Starshine are revealed to the outside world. For the longest time, Clairton, West Virginia, they were protective of Rom because he was protecting them as well. So he had like a little, he had a place to go on Earth, that is. So Starshine, she forms images from the air that basically tells you, I say basically way too much, tells you what has happened up till now. And the wraiths used to look like this. When Sal Buscema drew them, I don't know if he knew the book was going to last, because he made the dire wraiths much cooler when Walt Simonson redesigned them around 47 or something like that. But originally, Sal Buscema drew them as like fluffy cloud creatures, and it didn't seem that menacing. But a lot of the weapons and sorcery and stuff that they did was pretty impressive. So there's the Skrulls, who are sort of related in a way, because they both are shapeshifters. And here it is. Now that you know the enemy is among you, will you yield your world to them, or will the earth rise up and fight? That's great stuff. So the diary's like, God, I sound like a dork. So Bill Sienkiewicz cover, really, really cool. Really, really cool. Total War. And it's neat Jim Steranko bit where you turn the letters into panels. And this is inked by Mel Candido. We can make it together. That's Tony Orlando and Dawn from like 50 years ago. So they're officially at war. You get the army involved, and which was really spectacular. It's just that there was only one way to go from here, and they didn't really. Oh, so the government accepts Rom and Starshine, and they get this globe hologram, and Rom uses his neutralizer to show how many patches of dire wraiths are strongholds, and not talking individual like strongholds, like a lot of them. And Starshine, there's even some here. Are you going to let that alien to insinuate that your staff are inhuman? That alien was born here on Earth, gentlemen, which is more than it could be said, soldiers, of some of you. So trippy stuff, really, really good stuff. I guess what I liked about before being Total War was what was great is it was Marvel's version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It was just some really cool, it was a small town, and Bill Sienkiewicz painting, I love that. Paranoia Strikes Deep. And Bill Sienkiewicz is co-inking this too, so I love what he did on the helicarrier there and the Hellhounds. Now this could have benefited by a lot more shadows. It's a little too, I know it's a big battle page, but it's a little too coloring book. But I know back then the palettes were limited, and also with the line work, also the books had to get out on time. So they're in front of President Reagan, and both Rom and Starshine and Nick Fury, the top agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., the director, he gets everybody involved, and Reagan makes a statement saying that, explaining everything, and said that we have to go to war, and we'll need all these allies. And he mentions Rom, greatest of the Space Knights. Some speech, huh, General? Now wait, the talking's over, the fighting begins. Now we get to the never-before reprinted issue of the Hulk. There was a Epic collection that came out a while back, a long time ago, and it had this issue in it, but ROM was not licensed anymore at the time. They could use the cover like one time, but the pages of this issue that had ROM were cut out, and then it was like text that explained what happened and why it wasn't reprinted. They do that with some other stuff too. But so Gary Talek, who I never really knew before, but really, really great stuff. Inking on Sal Buscema, who's doing his book forever, and the Hulk has Bruce Banner's mind. He, however, is hobbled because he somehow in Secret Wars on the Beyonders world he got his leg broken. So he's trying to talk sense, and this gamma-rated old guy is just plain dirty. He's gets smacked in the wound. There comes the Hulk we all know and run away from. Love that. That's very John Buscema right there. So again, what's great was Bill Mantlo was so good at setting things up. I'm talking like Rom fought a few Hulk villains, including the Missing Link, who wasn't really a villain. He was just kind of a misunderstood monster, much like him. He fought him in issue 20 something, and Missing Link mentioned the Hulk, and there were other foes that the Hulk that he fought, including the Metal Master, who was a foe of the Hulk. And for for years, he would be like, who is this Hulk? And will I encounter him one day? And after all these years, it paid off. It's pretty wild. You have to bear in mind, I've been reading these every month, so this was like a few years building towards the confrontation. So we're back at ROM. Love that. Very Kirby-type helmet for this guy. He's trying to find out the dire wraiths. Melchidino still inking. So it looks really, really great stuff. And I'm going to jump ahead a touch. There's evil over Atlanta. When I read that, I ran. I was like, no. Beautiful cover by Butch Geis. Then again, I live in Atlanta, and do you know if I'm the real Drew Geraci or my dire wraith? God, that's gorgeous. I think this is Sal's one of his last issues. He moves on. I don't remember what he did. He went back to Spectacular Spider-Man. He did like a while on Alpha Flight, and then he did like a long run on Spectacular Spider-Man that I really, really recommend. It was like 137 to 200 and something, but then you skip issues because that's when the Clone Saga drags on and on. So Mark Bright is the artist here, who we just lost recently, and I recognized from that face right away. He penciled the Armor Wars that Bob Layton and David Michelinie had plotted, and it was a lot of heavy lifting. Boy, that's sweet. Now this is back to Sal. Now we get, I don't know, we're still doing love that stuff. At this point, Sal was doing tighter pencils, and then when he went over to ink himself on Spectacular Spider-Man, he really changed his style to, that's beautiful. Ant-Man. This is before Ant-Man was a big deal. Hang in there. Yeah. So here we go. We got Babyface Bob Layton inking Steve Ditko. Man, I should have gotten comics a lot earlier. I would have been able to ink a Ditko issue, and it would have been heavy. Heavy? That would be heaven. And it would be heavy. I'd be like tripping out and go, oh, I'm holding Ditko pages. So, and what's weird is I have this whole collection, all the individual issues, but I didn't go too far into the Ditko issues because they were, regular comic size, and the reproduction was kind of bad, so it just looked wonky. Like you just saw these real wonky layouts. But on this paper and this size, it looks much more attractive. It brings out more too. How about that? That is Tom Palmer, classic artist. Inks pretty much anything that matters. And that's, except for the hands, would you have known that was Steve Ditko? So Mike Carlin, who was a freshly minted editor, former assistant editor, he had this great idea, get Ditko and get the top artists to ink. That way people won't feel like, it's just that people, they would think too much old school. Like Kirby was old school, Ditko was old school, Don Heck was old school, but it's timeless stuff. It's not, it holds up. Some stuff that is of its time turns out to be shit. Like some of the many imposters who were trying to draw like the Image Boys in the 90s. So I wouldn't call that nostalgic. But then again, that's my prejudice. I liked it for a while, but then it got to be everything. So let's get back to some good story and art. Okay, Bill Sienkiewicz doing probably my favorite cover that he's done of ROM. The interesting thing too about ROM Space Knight is, this is a fill-in. Actually, this is done by William Johnson, who inked by Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey. Now, William Johnson, he did several issues of Daredevil, right up to issue 201 or something, and he did some other stuff too, and he was pretty good, but I don't know, he didn't stick around. I don't know what happened, but I liked his stuff. He, anyway, the way I see it is, I think Sal might have left because, it wasn't Hulk and it wasn't a classic character, and he basically built all this up, but he probably didn't know that, this comic based on a soon-to-be failed toy line was going to have legs. So he ended up doing like 55 issues. And ROMs, Space Knight, as well as Microns, they really opened the door to Marvel having great relationships with other toy lines like G.I. Joe and Transformers. But Bill Mantlo, he set up the initial, I don't want to say template. He just had that feeling like, well, I'm going to commit to this character. Because if it's a character based on a toy, a lot of times, in the past, maybe writers and artists weren't really into it. They thought, oh, this will just be my jumping point to Spider-Man. But anyway, speaking of Transformers and G.I. Joe, I got the offer to ink this crossover for IDW of Transformers and G.I. Joe, but I was in the middle. I was finishing part of a Batman annual, and I was starting on 2 issues of Captain Marvel around, 2014 or so. And the guy who called me, he got really, really pissed that I didn't accept it. But I mean, I'm only one person. I did take on more than a monthly book usually, but he just thought, he was like outraged that I didn't want to do it. And I'm just like, I'm not the guy to do it, but I appreciate it. But I guess anytime later I try to work with IDW, I think the person was jilted and, didn't want to work with me for no found reason, just other than spite. I mean, I might be exaggerating a bit, but a similar thing happened when I with Peter Tomasi. He was coming out with Major Bummer right after, it was 96, right after I spent the whole summer of 96 indoors doing 2 pages a day for Superman, Wonder Woman, Elseworlds, 4-issue series, 48 pages each. He kept pressing me to start working on Major Bummer, and it hadn't come out yet. He wanted me to do a test cover of the pencils over Doug Monk, who I would later ink on JLA and a couple other pieces here and there, like Final Crisis. And Peter couldn't understand that. It's like, I've just been, burning myself at both ends for the whole summer, and I didn't want to jump onto something right away. I'll do some fill-in work here and there, and he never hired me again. But I did work with him eventually on Green Lantern Corps. He was the writer with, what's that guy's name? I'm trying to think. Pat Gleason. And so he turned out to be a pretty good writer, to be honest. So anyway, let's get back to ROM Space Knight. Okay, so a lot of stuff's happening. You got the New Mutants, who were still pretty cool at the time. There weren't like 45 X-Men titles. Beginning of the End of the World as we know it. It is a cover by David Mazzucchelli, inked by Terry Austin, but you would never know because, you know, it's good. It's just that that's not what you think of Mazzucchelli. And I only knew that because at the end they have the original version of this done by him. Jackson Geis gets the ink Ditko. So I'm just going to shut up for a couple minutes and show you some of the pages. Steve Lee Aloha. Love it. Got a Mike Zeck cover there. John Beatty for both Captain America and Punisher. Let's see who this is now. Inked by Brett Breeding, up and coming inker who pretty much kicked ass right from the start. He has a strong Bob Layton inspiration. Isn't that interesting? How this has been flopped. It's not even deliberate. What's really interesting about P. Craig Russell inking Ditko is Ditko was a huge influence on him. I did an episode earlier, like a year ago, called it was about Doctor Strange, and it was this one shot called "What Is It That Disturbs You, Stefan?" And it was P. Craig Russell redrawing a book he had done 20 years prior, and he added a lot of Ditko touches to it. In fact, he called the planet Ditkopolis. And it's really a great book. Came out like in '97, I think. And here we go, Doomsday. I'm not going to spoil how it wraps up. Hang on. How about that? This one is inked by Steve Lee Aloha. Yeah, you can tell by the eyes. It's got kind of a scorpion feel to it, but who cares? It's still cool. So I just love all the little touches here. And like I said, it looks so much better. And I'm not a snob, not a paper snob, but being oversized with the art really, it makes the colors pop nicely. Ego, the Living Planet. Look at the boy, oh boy, that's great. You can see that P. Craig Russell's really, really enjoying himself. Man, well, it's a mad ball. One of the two. Don't matter. This is inked by Kim DeBalder. Whoa. Unam, the unseen. But I'm looking right at you. Bob Layton cover, the fourth and last issue of the annuals anyway. Al Milgrom doing a decent, a decent, like, what do you call? I can't think of the word. Sorry if I'm going too fast. And I'm jumping ahead. There's an issue that actually is inked by Joe Sinnott over Ditko. And I never knew if they worked together before or after. But it's really friggin' amazing. It's so great. That's a real trip. I'm totally digging it. Well, John Byrne does an issue. He inked Ditko on Avengers Annual, I think it was. It was pretty cool. But I'm not going to spoil the end for you. There we go. That's the original cover that Terry Austin inked. That he added all this stuff like Kleenex, Card to Mom, plunger keys, USS Titanic, and it was left out on the cover, of course. And this is an article on ROM. Oh man, this is back when, like, Marvel Age, Marvel's in-house fanzine, they would get commission new covers that wouldn't be repurposed anywhere. So I have Fred Hembeck. I've never seen this picture before, but Rom would be a really great cosplay. Really cool looking at. I totally dig that. That's Bill Reinhold, who did Badger for several years, Mike Barron's Badger. Derek Aucoin, it's not Aucoin. There's a manager of the band Kiss called Bill Aucoin. That's what everybody calls him, but it's actually pronounced Aucoin. But I think Bill Aucoin got tired of being called Bill Aucoin, that he just gave in. He's like, okay, I'm Bill Aucoin, even though it's really Aucoin. Okay, back to what matters. Actually, Derek Aucoin, he broke in just before I did. And for a brief while, we shared a studio with Dave Johnson. So this time slip episode here, I'm using a cough drop because I was coughing. So if you hear the noise, I apologize. Anyway, this thing called Time Slip, I'll have to dig that out. It was in Marvel Ages. It wasn't Marvel Age. It was Marvel something else in the mid around 96, I'd say. That they would have a thing called Time Slip, and they would say, okay, well, some artists will redesign certain characters. So he decided he was tasked with redesigning the Dire Wraiths just for this pinup, not to be reused, and they collected them in one book. I'll have to bring it up. Ryan Stegman, J.P. Mayer, and Dave McCraig. Rom's got that. It sort of has a what do you call him? I think of that guy's name. Mark Texiera look to it. I'm not keen on like how the armor looks rumpled and crumpled. That's just me. And you got Derek Marquez, and Matthew Wilson. That's nice. This is one of the most amazing pieces. It's by Luciano Vecchio. Boy, that would make a great poster, wouldn't it? When I look at it, I see a combination of Brian Stelfreeze and Ken Stacy, who did a lot of magazine art, like for Epic Illustrated and other stuff like that. And man, that just knocks me out. That would have been a great cover for the Omnibus, but that's okay. I got it right here. This is by a guy named Scan. It's okay. And this is by Taran Clark. I apologize. This is by, if I get it wrong, Peach Momoko. Get some original art here. This is beautiful, huh? Original art there. Another Butch Geist piece. There we go. That's better. There's Sienkiewicz pen and ink art. And there's P. Craig Russell actually signed that page. And that's it. That's it, everybody. I hope you dug it. Hope I had some insights. If you have any questions, comments, what you like, what you don't like, tell me if you're new to ROM, or if you grew up with ROM, or if you're sick of ROM. Anyway, okay, I'm done amusing myself. I hope I've amused you and enlightened fellow fans that they should give this a try. There's an Epic collection coming out next year that reprints like the first 20 issues of ROM. So if you want to wait, better, 6 months at least, then you can wait till the Epic collection comes out. That surprised me as well. There's a Micronauts Epic coming out as well of the first 2 years. So whatever you decide, it's good stuff. And I wish you all a good day and good health. And that's it. Take care, everybody.